श्रीमती मीनाक्षी लेखी.
Thank you very much, Speaker Ma'am. The two amendments which have been proposed in the House are on shipping, merchant shipping amendment, and according to me, this was a very important amendment considering India has a coastline of 7,500 kilometers and 2,000 kilometers of SEZ zone, and coastline supports about 30% of Indian population. But the flip side is that various pollutants in the water bodies, which is sediments up to 1,600 million tons, industrial effluents 50 by 106 cubic meter, sewage largely untreated is 1.41 by 109 cubic meter, garbage and other solids 34 by 106 tons, fertilizer residue about 5:106, synthetic detergents residue is about 130,000 tons, pesticides residue is about 65,000 tons, petroleum and hydrocarbon tar balls residue is about 3,500 tons, mining rejects and dredged spoils and sand extractions have led to huge amount of pollutants added to the sea and ocean waters. With the result, 30% of Indian population gets affected. Thus, the amendment, which is sought to be in terms of international convention to control the harmful anti-fouling system on ships, was much needed, and it was in 2001, which is regarded as the protection of maritime environment and human health, to protect human health and maritime environment from harmful effects of the pollutants. This particular amendment was sought to be brought and was brought in 2013. So what the Government of India is trying to do is cover all ships, not all in terms of their tonnage, but most merchant ships under this purview, and exclude small ships for fishing, etc. are excluded, and the certificate needs to be procured under International Anti-Fouling, and Director General of Shipping has to issue this particular certificate. Only after this, the ship will be found to be fit and can be allowed in the Indian Sea and Indian waters. Paint, which is used to slow the growth of organisms, that organisms which attach themselves to the hulls of ships, usually it used to be made up of copper and other biocides. International convention had banned the use of tributylene because of the toxic effects on marine life, and its use was high in 1960s and 70s. Environmental studies showed that it enters the food chain, and that was the most difficult part, because most people around the coast are dependent on their food supply from the sea. And when this pollutant enters the food chain, that enters the human system also and affects the health of individuals who are dependent on fish and other such products of the sea. And thus, from genetic makeup to various other diseases which enter the system, not just human but marine life gets affected. This was an important amendment which has been sought to be brought by the government, and I support this because it is in terms of the UN Convention and approved formally by the Standing Committee on this particular enactment. The other amendment in the same bill is about the labor which is used on the ship. One basic requirement is never to employ children below the age of 14, but this bill has sought to make it 16, that children up to the age of 16 cannot be employed, and only from 16 onwards they could be employed as apprentice, which is again very important, and minimum wage and minimum age of the girls also have been allowed as apprentice on the ships. Employment of children is prohibited, and today they can be on training ships, on a ship where all employees belong to the same family, on a ship engaged in short voyages on nominal wages and under the charge of the father or other adult near male relative. The bill entirely prohibits employment of a person below the age of 16. The bill prohibits engaging minors in the light of work. The Act follows minors to be engaged as trimmers or stokers under certain conditions. Food and drinking water, it stipulates that every ship shall have sufficient provision for food and water, and the bill adds to in charge of the ship shall maintain quality and quantity of food which needs to be supplied to the employees on the ship in terms of international conventions. Medical facilities also need to be provided for. In the ships where people are above a certain basic number or where people are below a certain basic number, in both situations foreign going ships will require the certification, and more than prescribed number of persons should have a qualified medical doctor on board. Maritime labour certificate also requires that gross tonnage of 500 or above, voyaging internationally or operating in another country shall require maritime labour certificate and a declaration of maritime labour compliance. The government shall prescribe the manner in which certificate needs to be issued. The rules accordingly have been also brought in place. So thus, and seafarer is a new word added to the existing Act. The seafarer is a term which means that any person employed on a sea-going ship except warships and military or non-commercial government ships. This is in addition to the earlier Act. Warship and military ships, along with smaller dhows and others, have been excluded from the applicability of this Act, and dispute resolution also has enhanced the disputed amount between the employees and the shipping master. Earlier it used to be disputes between seafarers and their employers if the disputed amount does not exceed rupees 3,000. The bill proposes to raise this upper limit to rupees 3 lakh. So these are amendments which are keeping in view the International Labour Organization mandate on Maritime Labour Convention of 2006. Convention lays down the standards for living and working condition for those who are seafarers, including their food, accommodation, medical care, social security and recruitment. Thus, I support both the amendments because they are for the good of the country and the people. Thank you.
Thank you.